All right. So we are done with the book of Revelation. Yay, finally. Now I'm going to speak out of book of Proverbs for about a month. To you who seek wisdom is the title of my series. To you who seeks wisdom. I know most of you do seek wisdom, right? Don't we want to be all wise in our life? And so this is something you're looking for all the time, all right? So that's the series that we're going to talk to. Wisdom is the key word for my sermon today. Wisdom. What is wisdom to you?
It's making the right decisions.
Oh, making right decision. Okay, let me read you off the dictionary definition here. The quality of having experience and knowledge and good judgment. Good judgment. And there's other way, very simple way to say the ability, the quality of being wise. I guess that's a wisdom, very simple way of saying it. Basically, the wisdom plays a big part of the culture historically. We know under Greek Hellenism, so Western civilization, they had a special eyes on the wisdom. Okay, and so Sophia is the Greek word. It means wisdom in English. And one of the philosophers who is a disciple of Socrates. Do you know who Socrates is?
Greek philosopher.
Yeah, he's a philosopher, and actually he's doing philosophy. You know the philosophy in English, philosophy. There's a major for that. Actually, that word is philosophia. Philosophia is what philosophy is in English. It means love for wisdom. That's what it means. They love the wisdom so much, they created a philosophy, the journal, the class itself, and people live doing that, philosophers. So you can see how much this Greek culture was centered around this wisdom. They were looking for this. Actually, to the point, they thought this wisdom, knowledge of wisdom, will save them. Gnosticism is actually one of the cults that rise out of this idea that men are achieving his and her salvation through knowledge of knowing all things. I think we kind of have that attitude for some of the scientists and these days the people who are into the information and technology like that. So that's what it was. But in Asian culture, Oriental culture, actually there's a four virtue that we humans are supposed to have. And let me list those here. It's the humanity and justice and courtesy and knowledge. So the fourth one, the knowledge, actually is referring to the knowledge of the wisdom. And so anybody who is a human being that is seen as a decent person, they use as, you have to have a wisdom, the knowledge of wisdom. And so in a way, today actually the Hebrew culture in Proverbs is Oriental culture. And so their mind is very much like how the Oriental people, the Asian, have their culturally, their minds and perspectives are. And so here, the conclusion of this whole thing is found in verse 7, is that having a listening ear to God is the fundamental knowledge of all things. And so, as we are reading the verses, we'll realize what that means here. So let's read through the passage and you will know. This first verse 7 through 33 is a short verses, so we'll read through them all. Let's begin. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. They are a garland to grace your head and a chain to adorn your neck. My son, if sinful men entice you, do not give it to men. If they say, come along with us, let's lie in wait for innocent blood, let's ambush some harmless soul. Let's swallow them alive like the grave and whole like those who go down to the pit. We will get all sorts of valuable things and fill our houses with plunder. Cast lots with us, we will all share the root. My son, do not go along with them. Do not set foot on their path. For their feet rush into evil, they are swift to shed blood. How useless to spread a net where every bird can sit. These men lie in wait for their own blood. They ambush only themselves. Such are the path of all who go after in ill-gotten gain. It takes away the life of those who get it. Out in the open, wisdom calls aloud. She raises her voice in the public square. On the top of the wall, she cries out. At the city gate, she makes her speech. How long will you who are simple love your simple ways? How long will mockers delight in mockery and fools hate knowledge? Repent at my rebuke, then I will pour out my thought to you. I will make known to you my teachings. But since you refuse to listen when I call and no one pays attention when I stretch out my hand, since you disregard all my advice and do not accept my rebuke, I in turn will laugh when disaster strikes you. I will mock when calamity overtakes you. When calamity overtakes you like a storm, when disaster sweeps over you like a whirlwind, when distress and trouble overwhelms you, then they will call to you, but I will not answer. They will look for me, but will not find me. Since they hated knowledge and did not choose to fear the Lord, since they would not accept my advice and spurn my rebuke, they will eat the fruit of their ways and be filled with the fruit of their schemes. For the waywardness of the simple will kill them, and the complacency of fools will destroy them. But whoever listens to me will live in safety and be at ease without fear of harm. Amen. There's a lot going on, but there's three things that I'm going to try to summarize and outline to you. And the proverb is actually written by Solomon. And actually this is how he introduced himself. Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. And so knowing who wrote this gives us a lot, because it's a credential that supports the strength of the truth about this Proverbs that's given to us. But as you know, the Proverbs are not, we cannot equate it as if it is God's word. The Proverb is a very generalized principle or the truth. Not only the people of God understand and agree, but it is actually open to all publics. And so what we are talking about in this book of Proverbs, actually, it deals with every aspect of the life, the principle and the truth that ordinary people, human beings, will agree. That's how it is. But through that truth, actually, God is sending His own message and reveal the truth to us. Actually, this whole entire book of Proverbs is actually maybe original writer may have been the King Solomon, but he did not the one publish this. Actually, chapter 25, verse 1, it is said it's the King Hezekiah and his officials. They are the one put all these things together. And actually, he is 13th king of the Judah, Hezekiah. So that's almost like 120 years after King Solomon. Do you see that? So it passed more than 100 years. Maybe it was verbal proverbs, or maybe it is written proverb, but it's been passed along generation to generation. At some point, they put all this together and they published it as a book like Proverbs here. So obviously, as they are putting these together, this Proverbs and truth, and then this principle, this there's reason behind it, I guess. There's a purpose behind it. It has to be, right? And I believe verse 7 gives that purpose. Here, verse 7 said, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. I'm talking about every knowledge, every classes you take in university, every major that we did to study, all these knowledge, the fundamental basis of it is fear of God. I mean, I'm hooked on quantum physics these days. So I've been watching YouTube. I mean, every professor there is, Harvard to MIT to Seoul University, KAIST, I mean, all these top-notch university professors are presenting this quantum physics, and I've been listening to it now. I think I can even do myself a seminar on this. But you know what? Odd things happening right now. All the scientists are concluded we don't know why. But we know this is what's happening. Therefore, we will use it to better our civilization. And that's what they are doing. Quantum computer and quantum, whatever anything they put quantum in the front, it's the world that they cannot see, we cannot see, and we don't understand. We don't understand. But they know it's happening, and it breaks every principle and the law that we have been known, the physics law that we've been learning in school and following, and it doesn't work that way anymore in that quantum level. And so I was kind of intrigued by that because it was confirming more and more everything behind all this, there must be God. That's my conclusion. And more evidences keep popping up. And we are to the point now that all the scientists who are studying this quantum physics, they say, we don't know. Dark material, I thought they named it with a very good reason. But what's the reason they named dark material? Because they don't know. There must be there, but they don't know what it is. This is what pushes the universe to continue to grow and expand. There's a two theory, right? There's a force behind the universe, pulling the universe to expand. But they say, we don't know what's going on there, so we're not going to be able to touch it, right? We know the answer to that, right? God is working. But here inside the universe, there is a force that's pushing the universe to expand. But we don't know. We cannot see it. It's dark. We cannot even see it. But it's there because the energy is not passing through. If there's nothing in there, it has to passing through straight. But it's not. The star waves coming to us, as they're passing through this dark material, they are waving. They're reflecting. That's the only evidence. The only evidence is they see the millions of light travel to us, and the light shown on our picture. Hubble mounting and then the web light thing. When you see the picture, they see these lights are waved. That's how they know it's there something. Dark. We don't know what it is. And they conclude that's what's expected. The reason I'm saying is the God who created all things, somehow, He is the fundamental of the knowledge of everything that we know of. And therefore, fearing of God is the beginning of all things. And so that's here. So He introduced three different relationships in our sphere of life. And He talks about the first about people who fear God obey their parents' instruction. In every culture, do you know any culture they say we should not listen to and obey our own parents? Do you know any culture teach that? Or do you know any other culture that they don't teach this kind of principle? Honor your parents? That I know, every culture that I know, that obeying parents and listening to the parent is the very ordinary and fundamental relationship it establishes. Okay? And so, why then? Why then God is saying you need to listen to your parents? People who fear God obeys the parents' instruction. Well, He is going on with this instruction. For receiving instruction in prudent behavior, doing what is right and just and fair, right? For giving prudence to those who are simple, knowledge and discretion to the young. So the Proverbs are given to us so that we can have a life to live as a human being who are decent, decent human being. And then anybody can see us and say, oh, that's a human being. It's not an ape, it's not a beast. That different way, because we stay a wise and just and honest to our life. And therefore, the instruction and rebuking, right, is available for us. But this culture, we are in this culture that we don't want to hear anybody telling us what to do. I mean, my culture, I grew up listening other people telling me what to do. And I endured. That was the culture. But what I noticed these days, if I try to tell somebody, the little kids, what to do, oh my goodness. If I try to rebuke their wrong behavior, oh my goodness. Not only the kids reject me, but their parents will step on me. Who are you to say? When I was growing up, I remember watching my father trying to rebuke one of the kids. I mean, older kid than me. I was very tiny, and this kid was very loud, vocally talk back to his father in the village. And so my father faced it in the village as we were walking on the street, and my father turned to him and said, "Come over here." Literally, like he calling his own son, right? You come over here. I hear this is what you did. Like he was very vocal of saying, rebuking. Let's say, that kind of behavior is only done by fatherless son. There's a cussing actually in Korean. Literally saying, rebuking and saying, you're wrong. And this kid, right? I mean, it's like rejecting and talk back to my father. And I was witnessing this. But the thing is, then though, still it was okay for other adults and parents to give instruction and rebuke the village kids. And that's the time when we had the whole village raise our own children. But that's no more. That's no more. If anybody trying to rebuke and give instruction to someone's kid, the parents will jump at you saying, "You're not, this kid is not yours. This is my kid. Leave me alone, right? Leave this kid alone." And that's the attitude. And so more and more this culture don't want to hear any good instruction or rebuking. You want to study to educate students? I want to be a teacher? Let me warn you this, okay? Every semester, you will pull your hair to think about what to write for your report. Because you cannot no longer say negatively, directly what kids are. I mean, when I was growing up, my report card, it was very colorful. It was very direct remark, I understood what I need to improve. Now these days, you gotta analyze it to understand what this teacher is saying. You know why? Because they only use active verb, they only use positive verb. Your kid get a report saying, Brian is a good student, being pretty good at class. Probably he's doing very bad in the class. Okay? Good is not good anymore. It's just to give you the proper, this person is just average below, whatever. And actually, if you get a performance review at your workplace, very similar. You're doing good, you're meeting the requirement, but your raises. They won't tell you. Because now we know culturally, no one likes to hear. But think about this. Then, does that mean that I need to listen to our parents even though they are wrong? I mean, surprisingly, there's many parents who are wrong, right? Right? Oh yeah. There's many parents who are not responsible to their duty being parents, who are weak and fail. I mean, we know that culturally. But then why is it this Bible or this problem is telling us that we still need to listen to them? Why? Because I believe even though our parents are not able properly, or even though our parents are wrong in some respect, even though our parents are in our idea just like losers, I don't know, I know some kids would think that way, their parents are losers. I mean, literally it could be that too. But doesn't matter though, doesn't matter. when the parents gives instruction and advice and rebuking their own children, they do it out of what? They do it out of love for their children. This much, not only people of God agree, but it's all ordinary general public out there will agree. Our parents may have not earned the respect, but when they try to teach their own children, they do best to foster their love for them. And that's why their instruction and rebuking is basically a good for the children if they listen. But if you cannot listen to the counsel of your parents, who do you listen to? Who do you listen to? Oh, you might think, oh yeah, I have a best friend. Well, let's go back to the second one then. This is the second one. But what Bible suggests though, people who fear God do not listen to the tricks of sinners. You may be thinking, oh yeah, sinners, criminals. Obviously, you should not listen to the people who's in the prison, who is lying all the time, bad boy in the streets. Obviously, right? It sounds so obvious. And that's quite interesting too. The person that is described here is actually evil person, is translated word, but the original meaning is the sinful people. But this is my interpretation. Actually, what suggestion is people, you should not trust the schemes of people. This is how I translate. Because we already know how God perceives us. In the eyes of God, even though we are good people, we are all still sinners. Because we fail some aspect of our life. Maybe not the personality, maybe not the job, but some aspect we are just not perfect. We always fail. And therefore, I interpret this part of it as say, you know what? If you cannot trust your parent, you should not even trust your fellow mankind. Their schemes. You know why? Our parents gives us instruction and rebuking on the basis of love. They're willing to sacrifice. That's the attitude, that's the fundamental position they're in. But you know what others do? Their schemes are always self-serving. Self-serving. It's always filtered through the idea of, am I benefiting this? I am so much stressed these days dealing with the world that we live in. Oh my goodness. You notice this Christmas ring here? I purchased it yesterday from Lowe's. As I was entering in, I had some other things to buy. I saw a text saying 2 for $20. $20 for 2. Okay? It was tag. $20 for 2. So used to be $30 each. And so I remember that I wanted to hang it here in the church. So I put 6 of them into the cart. And then I shot something that I wanted to shop. And then it came out, and then I did this automatic checkout. Now I noticed these are $15 per ring. It should be 10, right? It's $15. So I complained to one of the ladies who's attend to that area. She said, "Oh, it's funny." So she checked it, and it's $15 per. Well, I still got good discount because originally, it's $30, right? And then the lady said, but I saw the tag saying it's $20 for 2. And then one of the ladies, she checks it, and it's $15. Sorry. And there was another lady who seems very experienced and looks like a manager there. She said, "No, it's $30 for 2. She was so right and know it. She said, $30 for 2. And so I paid it. And I walked out and then thinking to myself, but I do see the text say 20 for 2. So I went all the way to the place and I saw the tag and I ripped the tag out and went back in. This says $20 for 2. But they checked it and said, no, it's $15. But you know what they found out? On the tag, there's 5 different item numbers. 5 different item numbers there. It's all point to the same ring. And so one by one, they put it into the system. Guess what they found out? 1 out of 5 was only 20 for 2. And all 4 of them was 15 per 2. And let me ask you, do you think that $20 for 2 items ever have a tag number on these? What do you think? No, it's not. Typically, I will work out if I purchase only 2. I'll work out, okay, I saved some. And that's how most typical people would do. See, I'm so stressed now with dealing with even the hotel that we've been staying. Like, out of blue, yesterday charged like $700, all 3 days. But every day we've been paying. As I complained, that's what you guys did. And I went back to the desk and I checked my bank. It was all clear. They don't even say sorry. They just say, you must be making a mistake. But she had a receipt showing the money went out to the hotel. So like, what's going on? It's that much tough, this business right now in the world. The world that we live in right now is so hard to survive, and that's what they are doing. Just so crazy. Now, why is it that we cannot trust those people who is trying to trick you? It's because it's a self-serving. If I have no bread, if I have no water, the way that I'm going to deal with you is to benefit me. That will be nature of me. You may be thinking, I'm not going to be. You'll starve to die. That's not going to be. Because we have instinct in nature that we need to survive. And that's what's first for the person. And therefore, we cannot trust the skins of a man. And literally the way it's described here is like, let's wait for the person to passing by, and so we can shed the blood of the person and takes over all the treasure and the money and gold out of him, right? Literally, what kind of person, evil guy, have a scheme like that? They don't typically, right? That's not how they do it. What they do is like what businesses are doing right now. The banks and everybody, the car dealers, I experience all this now in several months now. Like, it's crazy. I'm so much is like worried about the community that we live in, because I cannot trust anymore as the face value. But actually, if you think about it, that's how it's been. It's getting worse and worse. Why is that? Because, you know what? So you partner with the bad, sinful person, so you shed the blood and you end up with the treasure in your hand. But your partner telling you this. Okay, let's make me and Samuel a partner. So I go by, hey Samuel, let's cast a lot. Let's cast a lot, and so the person who wins will manage the account. That's what it is here if you read through the passage. That's the suggestion. Why 2 persons working on it? So let's cast a lot so that whoever wins it, the person manages the account. Okay? And so you listen to it, sounds like a good idea. So you cast a lot. Let me ask you, who will win then? You may think, oh, I may. But I'm telling you, 100%, the other guy will win. The guy who suggests to cast the lot will win, and he will be in charge of your account. That's how you're going to end up not having anything. And that's what it is, exaggeration of what is happening in the world. And therefore, you should not trust. If you cannot trust your parent, you cannot trust another fellow human being's scheme. Because in deep nature, we are all sinful people. Then what do we need to do? What's the wisdom here about? Well, that's the third part. You must listen to God's instruction. Because God's attitude toward us is only love and neutral. There is no self-serving in this. His relationship is so open to you and honest and just. So we can take it as a face value. Therefore, when he says this is the right way, it is right way. If he is the one who created all things, if he is the one who created us and allow us to have this life, then there must be. But what we do? What do we do? Here, this is what we do. When the God calls us that we will not listen to what he is telling us, but we neglect. And when God gives us the rebuking, we get upset and reject him. See, they hated knowledge and did not choose to fear the Lord. They would not accept my advice and spurn my rebuke. It's when God is trying to give us the wisdom, we reject that wisdom. It's quite analogies going on. The wisdom is calling out here, out on the street. This is quite interesting analogy. What this one saying is, the wisdom is calling us not in a quiet place or not in a chapel like this, not in a temple where you can meditate. Actually, the wisdom is calling us on a street where the noise is, where the city gate is. The wisdom is calling out where the people are going wild. Have you ever think about it? We tend to thinking, the wisdom has to be happening somewhere nice and quiet. But what it's saying is, no. God has been sending us the wisdom on the street, noiseful street, where people are passing by. It's so noiseful you cannot even listen. But the wisdom is there. And it's quite interesting. We tend to look for wisdom as if you're thinking like the wisdom is found in the church, let's say. Right? We come to church and then hopefully we get to hear a good sermon, if you get lucky, and then that is the wisdom. But you know what? Actually, you have an opportunity to hear and see your wisdom in your life always, out in your job doing, in the marketplaces. It's been always crying out. And that's what God is saying. I try to speak to you in the midst of those noiseful life environment, the struggles and echoes like Home Depot and Lowe's and the places that we need to discern ourselves. What is going on here? And he's saying, how long will you ignore the wisdom out there? How long will you will ignore and be a fool? He's challenging, repent at my rebuke. And then he said, then I will pour out my thought to you. I will make known to you my teaching. You see, quite interesting. This noiseful life environment, noiseful and troublesome a life circumstances, God said he will speak to us. He will give us his thought. His spirit works in the midst of our troubled life. It's quite interesting. Actually I'm going to introduce this in the middle of this because I wanted to show you this. This is just what happened this week. This is the top of our roof in the back here. So that's what the fires happened. So I want to share this testimony with you. The place that we've been staying a couple of days, the light was flickering. And then one day, the light bulb for the 2 bathroom and kitchen and then 2 bedrooms were all shut. It was gone, blown up. And so I knew pretty much we had a problem, electrical problem back there. My background is electrical engineer, so I knew that. So I wanted to kind of look into it, So I, replaced one of the 30 amp circuit breaker that feeds the dryer. So I was trying to do one by one. But as 4 days ago, as we were driving up from San Jose up this way, I was listening to quantum physics YouTube, and one of the professors is talking about 2 nano level line, electrical line. It's a line that we cannot perceive. You have to have a light microscope to be able to see 2 nanometer, 3 nanometer line of that. And he explains that the reason that we cannot go smaller is because the line is so small, the currents, the particles are passing to the next line. So therefore, we are limited. We cannot make smaller chips anymore. That's why we are going to quantum. That's the whole idea. So as my wife was listening, that's what she told me. So then she said, then we must have that issue in our household, which is right. because actually it's not a nano level, but it's electrical wire that is jumping current. It's a leakage, we call leakage. And so that was the symptom that was. So she got so annoyed, so she decided to call PG&E. But I knew what PG&E does because their ownership of PG&E is, all it is the electrical pole outside the street to all the way to the top of the roof. That's their responsibility. And so I knew, because I knew the problem existed in the house, I didn't want to call, but she called. So she was let the phone ringing for connected to them for about 40 minutes. It was so noisy I was starting to do it, so I got so annoyed. And actually, one of the ladies answered finally, but I got so upset, you know what, I didn't even answer. And so I told my wife, you got connected. So she was explaining the situation of what we've been having, the problem in the place. Obviously, she didn't understand because that's not their responsibility. But somehow Samuel got a hold of that end of the call, and then he explained somehow. And then out of some reason, they decided to send somebody out that night. So they did. So one of the guys came out with his truck. And so Samuel and I, we were very curious what he's going to do. We went out the back of it where he was doing. So he had a big flashlight, and he's just going under the street and checking for the electrical line, follow all the way to our house on the top. That's all he does, his job. Shine the light. It was dark, so it was shine the light. So when he came second time, when he pointed to that middle one picture where the main power line would come, we saw steam light rise. We saw just tiny one. So we thought okay, must be rain after the rain with the, how it is, the steam comes up from the rooftop. We thought it was. So he was almost ready to ignore. So he went to the other side and doing this, and so I was watching like this. And then I saw nanosecond spark. And then thought to myself, did I hallucinate or imagine? I didn't know I saw it. I really couldn't say it. It was so quick. And so the guy came and said, I think I saw it, and then all three of us was watching. And then we saw the steam rises a little bit more, and then we saw the second time spark. That was it. And so he saw it and said, call 911. So they, firemen came. And look at this. This is when they came out and tried to get that smoke. At night, it's pitch dark. You cannot see anything. No smoke can be visible. That's just nothing. And the fireman said, how did you call us? And think about it. How can we call firemen in that state? There's no way. They were saying, what were you guys doing here? Literally, right? I mean, looking at the rooftop at night. It sounds like they were telling me, interrogating me, saying, you set the fire, or some kind of that attitude. It was kind of weird. And I shared this story with my brother, and my brother said, yeah, this is God doing. I mean, that moment to be able to catch that, the fireman said, in 30 minutes, if we weren't there, this building won't be here anymore. In 30 minutes. All that nagging from my wife for the PG&E to send somebody without good reason, where I see it. Okay? And so whole conclusion is, anyway, just because they knew it wasn't their issue, but they decided to fix all the line, they put the new line, okay? But they opened up the gauge, and they found that chlorine back there, but it's not their responsibility. So I called third-party electrical guy who did the inspection, and inspection said, everything's okay. And so that's the reason I called PG&E to turn on the power. The guy, I called the night and said, hey, they found the issue. So he fixed the inside and the grounding issue, and we turned it on. So we have power here. But the problem is, the real problem didn't disappear yet, right? Because we had a problem. The home over there still have a problem. So we turn on the circuit breaker. Now we hear the sound, noise, and the top of that roof still. So the other line is closing, which probably originally that was the problem. We didn't fix it, so the electric is shut. But the reason that I'm sharing this is the timing of how God trying to save. It's how is this possible? If we had missed the 30 minutes, which is just that 30 minutes is nothing compared to back of the building, no one's looking at night. I mean, it's that's what God was watching over us, where I see it. But when we begin to ignore, when God is trying to give us the wisdom and explain what is supposed to be, but what do? Since you refuse to listen when I call, and no one pays attention when I stretch out my hand. Think about it what God is trying to do is, hey, we want you to be here, right? But how the people respond is they're refusing and rejecting. Right? Since you disregard all my advice and do not accept my rebuke. I'm thinking for my church, I think God is trying to tell us how precious this church is. It could be no more, right? Could be no more, like any other uses you hear about it. But somehow God has a way of this situation and help us to understand what it means to have a church where people are complaining. Not churches being the way that they want it to be, right? People are complaining because, I want this kind of church. But you know what? We cannot serve every one of you differently, right? And the fact that God is still see the reason for this church to be here. But the sad part of it is when we continue to reject His instruction and rebuking, this is what He said. This is a comedy where I see is what God is saying He's going to do. He said, I in turn will laugh when disaster strikes you. Can you imagine? When somehow some disaster struck us, God will just looking at over us and He will laugh. It's a comedy, literally. And then He said, I will mark when calamity overtakes you. He will make fun of you when you are in trouble. Do you think really God will do that? No, I don't think so. No, He's saying to us, that's how I feel right now. Because you're neglecting my instruction, you're ignoring my rebuking. And then many times parents do that to children. I'm going to kick you out, But there's no motivation behind it. We just tell you because we are frustrated. And I think here what God is trying to say, that's not what God is saying. It's to the point that we are ignoring and we are against Him so much He is upset. When the calamity overtakes you like a storm, when disaster sweep over you like a whirlwind, when distress and trouble overwhelm you, He said, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to do nothing. Then they will call to me, but I will not answer. They will look for me, but will not find me. I was glad that my church did not wait that long or go that far when God is trying to tell us what it means. And that's why I think we put everybody together somehow. My wife's complaints to the PG&E ladies and the guy who came out, Pastor Samuel and I were watching. Literally, the firemen couldn't believe. How could anybody call them when just that little bit of smoke just rise at night? No one can see. It's like, God must be behind all this. And what does that mean? It's a warning. Warning. But our problem is this. They hated knowledge and did not choose to fear the Lord. Our problem is that they would not accept God's advice and spurn His rebuke. And so God is trying to teach us. If we somehow remain to ourselves and stop serving all the time, and what will happen is this. He said, they will eat the fruit of their ways and be filled with the fruits of their scheme. Their scheme, the negative word scheme, when you use it, you feel like that's a negative. But what it is the other way of saying is your plan. That you plan just for yourself is your scheme. What God is saying is you're going to eat the fruit of your ways. Because He isn't going to do anything. He will let us do whatever I do. This fire didn't start by God. This church has been notified about these issues for about 20 years ago, I think. That red circuit breakers on the panel, they are no good. The fireman said they are setting fire on the main panel right now. The company is out of business because of that. They said, you got to replace this whole thing. And we had the recommendation 20 odd years ago. In the name of saving money, we've been ignoring it. It's what we did. It's not about God is causing the fire and then teach us what to do. It's always the grace of God is catching the end of what we do. I mean, it's like, can you imagine when you watch a movie, the main character, I mean, he's out there fighting with the enemies, but the gunshots are going left and right and everywhere, and even missiles are flying in. But what happened to the main character? None of those hit him. But if you were to think about it, that's the kind of life we live in this world. I mean, aren't you feel bad when you see some accident on the freeway while you're driving? It could have been me and you, but it's not. And just think about it. How much grace of God can make sure you understand what God is doing in the midst of our life. We think everything is ordinary and we think everything we deserve. Not true, not true, not true. And that's the teaching we learned from all this experience. So what shall we do? The most fundamental thing that we need to do is that we fear Him by listening to His words, His admonitions and reproofs of what we are, who we are, what we do. We human beings are very decent beings, where I see. But that decent average is not enough for in the eyes of God. If you feel you're a good person, I say congratulations. Okay? Thank God for your personality. Thank God for your decision making. Thank God for your good behavior and everything. But you know what? In the eyes of God, we still need the God who created us to help us to be a better person. And do not just trust yourself because you are not perfect. Do not trust other human beings because they are not perfect. Honor your parents even though they are not perfect. Because at least those, if you want to trust anybody, trust those who loves you. Now, to me, that's the lesson. If you want to trust anybody, trust those who loves you. But trust no one that's self-serving. And trust God. And fear God. And try to adhere to His instruction and His rebuking of life. When you hear a voice, this is not right, then it's not right. When the Holy Spirit speaks to you, hear it out. Right? When the Word of God pops into you saying, this is the right way, then try to keep it. I mean, we're not saying you got to make something up. You don't have to make voice of God. The wisdom of God is crying out on the street, crying out in marketplace, and in the city gates. It's crying out. You got to be smart about this life. What's being about smart? Hey, don't trust yourself. Don't trust others, but trust God Almighty. And then, rest of it, you will find peace. Well, this is quite interesting and talk here. He said this, whoever listens to me will live in safety and be at ease without fear of harm. But I want to talk to this without fear of harm. Did it say that you're not going to have a harm? No. He didn't say that, right? He did not say you're not going to have a troubled life. He did not say you're not going to have a hardship in life. We're going to have a trouble, relationship, and crisis and conflicts in this life. But guess what? At least we're not going to fear it when we begin to trust God. Begin to trust God. And safety is somewhat provided. And maybe we are at ease. Actually, in the morning, one of my elder, he came back from Korea and he couldn't sleep. But that's not the problem. Actually, suddenly he fell into depression. Right now, he cannot even drive. And so we are praying for him, but it's like nothing happened. Just, he came back from Korea, nothing happened. It's the first time he's experienced just no sleep, and no confidence and fear sits in. It just can happen to anybody. It's just like crazy. It's just that little tiny string that God is holding us up. That's the grace of God. We feel like we have, all the skill set, we have strength and everything. No, it's not. It's not. We don't. And so, understanding and humbly accepting the fact that we are not perfect. We need someone's help, someone's advice, someone's instruction, someone's rebuking. And if you wanted to listen to God. Okay? And eliminate little bit, surrender yourself. Listening to yourself is not a wise thing. Listening to your friend is not a wise thing either. Okay? Trust me, there's so many business partners that didn't work out. So many friendship relations didn't work out. It's just because we are too weak. What can you do? You invested $1 million and the other guy said, I lost $2 million, so I have nothing to survive. So therefore, the contract's over. What can you do? That's us. If we are in that situation, that's how it's going to be. And that's the reason we need to trust God. Trust God. Because He is the one who will trust us the same way we expect. Wisdom is to have a listening ear. But it's not to listen to everybody. Okay? If you want to listen to those who loves you genuinely. If you want to listen only Almighty God, who fully understands you and He has no bias. So what's your motive? But it's for Him to love us. And to me, that's a way of having a safe and fearless life. So I hope you guys will have that kind of life as you're struggling in the world. I feel for young generation because how tough this life is right now. Just, I cannot imagine the struggles that you guys are going through facing in the world because there are literally lions out there trying to devour you. That's how I see it. I mean, maybe you may be thinking that I'm exaggerating, but, literally that's what's happening when I see it, okay?
A lot of bad people out there.
Yeah, it's very, very, very rough and tough. And so, power of God be with you, promise of God be with you, and grace of God be with you in every walk you take in this life.